Last time on Wanderlust. Please tell me that you brought back something interesting for me.
Well, yes, I have. Several somethings, actually.
Do you know about how many new species are discovered by all of the eco-herbs put together a year? 25 new species a year. It's not that weird. We discover new things. I have found, so far, this year, 30 new species. Sometimes, people think of ambition as a negative, but you can have a very, very good career and a lot of recognition for a lot of interesting discoveries if you don't really do what the Wild Watchers do and try to hide from the wilds. You are going to discover so many things, and eventually I'm not going to want to claim credit for all of them, and then you can.
Are you offering me a permanent job here?
I'm not going to get rid of you if you're useful.
Okay, look, I don't want to be rude here, but can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead, I guess.
Is there a reason you went out into the wild with us to start?
You're not entirely wrong. When I first saw you guys out at the ruins, I saw a damsel in distress that might need saving. Turns out, didn't need saving, none of you need saving. But then, we got along so well, I just kind of kept going with you.
Finding any service for Xula is always very easy. So as you walk out, this sort of feels so familiar to you to find a community that you can immediately find the step for. And you walk out and see chanting, like there's like a call and response, but also going through like sort of like dance steps almost.
I thought I knew what I was gonna see in the wilds, but it was a lot more destructive than I thought it was.
Sometimes when you look at something, it's going to seem like there is no reason, but we bring the reason to it, and that's sometimes kind of hard. Maybe you see something horrible, but that has to serve a purpose for you.
Like, what brings you out here? Like,
It's because of my partner, Bo. Well, I guess ex-partner. We're not together anymore, but he told me he was leaving and joining the Ringus. I was in shock. He said he didn't think I could hack it where he was going.
I know how you feel, like you have to prove yourself. Like, I mean, that's kind of like how I feel a lot. Like, I don't know. Like, I left my family back home. Like, I'm kind of like the disappointment, you know? Like, I don't know. Like, I get it. Like, I get like feeling like you have to prove yourself to people. And like, I think I'd be lying if I said like I didn't come out here to make my own way and prove myself. I don't know. You seem great, Juliet. I don't think you need to prove yourself.
Well, I'd say the same thing about you.
Well, thanks.
Living in Smoky Banks for the next, let's call it a week, maybe two. There's a little extension of time here that's sort of odd for all of you as newcomers. Large disasters always occasionally happen, right? Like, this is not the first time, nor will it be the last time that there is pretty large devastation to an eco-herb. The eco-herbs themselves are designed to largely handle these themselves, but with Autumn helping get the communications back up, there is eventually a not huge, but eventually like people and materials start showing up to try to help you guys rebuild. Maybe there's some short-term food and also like seeding and planting help being done to just like get your gardens back up, make sure everything's good there. And then, yeah, just people here to help as like, requests for assistance from eco-herbs that weren't hit by a giant storm or weren't hit as badly by a giant storm go out. There is always going to be some lag for that, but, that happens eventually. So it's odd because on the one hand, it's like there's always something to do, but you can't do everything all at once. So there's just kind of always this ambient work going on. The market's largely been cleaned up at this point. like all of the housing is not rebuilt, but most people now know where they're living for a little bit. So, you know, you hear a little bit of complaints here and there in the gardens of people being stuck living together. Like all of a sudden, every room in the loft is full, and you know, Juliet and Estelle are not the only ones doubling up. So, you know, that's like a little bit of frustration.
Have Honey and Fred doubled up yet?
I was thinking it. I wasn't going to tempt fate by asking it.
That's entirely up to you. I mean, Honey's been pretty open about how she feels. I wasn't planning on doing this, but now I'm really curious. Okay, so I would say there were two large residential structures that like housed probably 50% of the town's total population was probably housed between the eco stays and the lofts, right? So I just kind of think this is fun. What do you guys want the town to rebuild? Like, let's say at some point, you know, there's like a public forum. A lot of different propositions are made by a lot of different people for like different rough plans of like, do we want to go with, we try to refurbish the building and get it working again? Do we demolish it and put something else in its place? Do we build an entirely new structure? Like, it's pretty rare that there is a need for like totally brand new structures. So this is like, I don't want to say exciting, but kind of it's rare that there's this much work that needs to be done. So let's say there is at some point some public forum about that, which we don't need to go in character. This is sort of like a world building opportunity for you guys. And I think this is most going to affect Estelle, because that was her place that got destroyed. What do you guys think? What would you like a new housing structure to look like in Smoky Banks?
So I think because we have all of the space in Old Town, first of all, we definitely need to build whatever we're building there.
Okay, I like that.
So it's like, we're not transplanting everyone that was in the Warrens and Old Town into over by the lofts. There's still going to be a place for people to live in Old Town.
Sure.
Personally, I actually saw this recently. I really like the idea of like refurbish old school buildings. So I think they end up, my opinion is I think what they end up doing is they build a building that looks similar to the lofts, but it still has a lot of the characteristics of Old Town. You know, this is an opportunity for the architects to like make it seem similar so that it blends in. But then you also have like more of the amenities, because I think realistically the lofts are a good way to house a lot of people, but maybe they're a little bit more focused on like family units, because that's what I imagined the eco stays being, where it's like
less shared stuff. Yeah,
less
like
shared
pods.
and more of like, you know, we are a family of 4 to 5 and we want our own space because we're gonna need that anyway. But then like I don't know, maybe you still have like a community center down at the like first floor.
Okay, I have thoughts on that. Other input? I'm going to make all of you say something, so, you know.
I'm trying to figure out a good name is what I'm trying to do, but it's not clicking.
You know, at some point, we just either have to not name it or just wait for Caitlin to say something, because she's going to end up coming up with a name that's going to be better than whatever we come up with. I'm allowed to be bitter, by the way.
I'm trying to play on something where it's like a counterpart to lofts, but I'm not finding anything good, you know, like, best I got is like Sky, so together they're like the Sky Lofts. But, like, that's the best I got. Like, I've been looking, like, while Mandy was talking that whole time, like, looking up synonyms for lofts, and just wasn't happening. So, Mandy said it's, like, refurbished school building. I think, in a way that is divergent from the lofts are very much, like, single dwelling in the majority. Like, this building has a lot more family space. It is meant to be like the family home, so it's like you can still have like the experience of the lofts, but like instead of having like, you know, a dorm room, you know, you now have a suite of rooms, you know. It's not just because I imagine we established like the lofts are pretty small per person, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of combined resources in the lofts. Yeah,
so it's that there's less combined resources, but I think the one thing that was kept that everyone agreed was a good idea was the communal cooking.
Okay.
So, like, you know, you have your own bathrooms, you have your own sinks, you have your, like, that's a little bit more separated because you're, like, hosting families in a pod now. But they're like, no, we still want, like, just one giant kitchen for the floor.
I like that idea. I think I have a name. Right now, my name idea for this would be the Solarium.
That's cool.
It's like what you call a sunroom.
Oh, I didn't know
For reasons that will become apparent. Okay, other input from other people. Caitlin and Vinny, you got to say something. Caitlin, I'll warn you, if you come up with a name idea that's better than the Solarium, you're off the podcast.
No, I honestly, I have literally zero ideas for a name. Solarium sounds lovely. Given the name of Solarium,
Solaroffs.
I think that. So I think we established in the lofts that they, like in this world, like using mirrors and light creatively is kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so we talked about like you kind of have mirrors that you set up in your room to catch sunlight so that instead of like turning on a light necessarily, you're like bouncing light to where you need it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that would be the same here. But the kind of aesthetic feature is that there are mirrors. There's like some glass and mirror work on the outside too. And so it kind of makes the refurbished school building look almost organic, even though like sand or glass isn't exactly organic.
It's one of the better ones, really, considering if you smash it up, it just turns back into sand eventually.
Right. That's true. That's true. It's not like it doesn't grow though.
Right.
So I think that like from the wreckage of the eco stays, like all of the glass and then like there being like a lot of glass and things around in the eco herb that is repurposed as kind of like a aesthetic feature on the outside of the building.
Yep. All right, Vinny. Take us home.
Couldn't have warned me several hours ago.
It doesn't help.
No, because I didn't know this was going to happen until literally now. This is entirely spur of the moment. I just kind of liked that idea of going like, what does it start to look like there? I think it's kind of fun to give you guys some feedback on.
So I guess how big of a building are we thinking this place is?
Pretty big.
Pretty big.
Like how many stories? Like multiple stories?
Oh, yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. So I was imagining... like, I'm sure that this is the type of thing that probably a lot of our buildings have anyway, but I was imagining that, like, not only does this new place have an arboretum, it has, like, multiple, like, one on each level. Each floor, the center not structure, but this, like, center area is, like, almost like a little park that you can go hang out in.
Mm-hmm.
I like that idea. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, so I think kind of the shape that this ends up taking, it's called the solariums. It's going to be pluralized. So the way these work out is the spaces are largely repurposed, either like strip malls or school, right? So like, whatever the kind of commercial/school area was, those buildings are still there and were sort of unused, So what these end up being is like more flexible spaces, so they're less set, like, because the eco stays were just apartments that were kind of retrofitted. These are now like being like you're having to add more stuff to them, so they're probably like salvaging stuff out of the eco stays and like basically making apartments in these. But what that means is sort of the plan is that when you ask to live there, they kind of like make you a room and you have a little bit more input on what that room looks like. So like if there's maybe like an extended family that's all staying in one of these and they go, hey, it'd be nice to have our own kitchen. Sure. Or like in the case of like Matthew, he's trying to train to be a chef. So maybe he wants to be able to experiment. I love the idea that largely what they do here is like put on glass roofing so that they can have like solarium means a place of the sun. So like that's kind of like what they try to do here is make these very bright with natural light by, like having those parks and like glass features that everyone talked about. And I definitely like that idea of having like outdoor kitchen feels, So instead of it being like indoor kitchens on a dorm room floor, these are like outdoor barbecues, that everyone goes and hangs out in, so like high ceilings, plenty of like ventilation for smoke. But you see a lot more like open flames and little fire pits and stuff out there as people are cooking their food together and stuff. So I like that idea. So those are not done yet. Construction is started. They're having to bring in help from other eco herbs because this is like a pretty big project to get these going again.
Yeah, I was going to say like resources are not super.
Yeah, this is going to be a long-term thing.
Just like available.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long process. Yeah.
This is going to be a long-term process to get this up and running. But you can kind of like see construction starting on that off in the distance. You know, as you guys walk around, you can see that they're like starting to build out there and work on that. And probably occasionally they'll bring in people from garden shifts to be like, hey, could you guys come out here and just like hang drywall or whatever?
Yeah.
You know, we got to put up a lot of sheetrock. You're doing it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of the artists now are probably putting like their stuff on hold and just making window panes.
Right.
Yeah. Like a lot of your artisans. So Fred's probably getting drug into this pretty frequently, just as like, hey, you know, and for Fred, this is probably a good deal. Like, hey, you're terrible at gardening. Can you please go like
construct,
do pipe fitting for a while?
Yeah.
Like,
what are you talking about? I'm great at gardening.
You are not. Everyone knows it. But it so happens that you're super useful right now. Yeah, I like that idea that like the amount of art crafts available are like kind of lower as people are constantly having to work over there. So after a couple weeks, things settle down to the point where, like I said, most people know where they're going. They know kind of where they're staying for the time being, and they're just waiting for things to be done. Things are largely cleaned up. You know, it's just kind of a holding pattern now. And it's at this point that the eco herb of Smoky Banks kind of holds a, like, what I would think of as like a midnight memorial service. So there were deaths that happened because of this. As much as people like Matthew did a lot to like step up and pull people out of buildings, like you can never do that for everybody. And this loss was felt pretty palpably by the town. It's uncommon that there is this much destruction. So the way a memorial service looks in Smoky Banks, you know, there's a lot of different lunar deities. And that typically means that people separate out during those times, you know, like different people that observe different lunar deities probably, you know, have entirely their own methods of worshiping. I think, and, you know, people can pitch in ideas here as well if there's anything that strikes you. But I think the way like this memorial service would look here is that it's a time when the entire town gets together. I think there would be a late meal afterwards, probably, and it's done fairly deep into the night, like as, you know, the sky is full of moons. And I think probably like leaders from all of the major lunar deities kind of run the service together. So, you know, each faith probably has their own funereal services that are observed. And they kind of just do all of those together. And it just kind of gives the town a chance to be together and kind of remember the people that they lost and grieve together, you know, and try to heal together as a town. So I think the service is not overly long, not drawn out. And then afterwards, you know, all of you are sitting there enjoying a meal together after all of these different leaders from all these different people have kind of done whatever funereal services there are. I think that, you know, in this society, children tend to stay up later too, like as worshiping lunar goddesses requires you to be up at night. So it's sort of like a mix of like adults who get it and kids who are running around still. Like the whole town is probably packed into the market district at these big tables. Like anyone who can cook has like been preparing food for this. So it's sort of like the odd combination of kids that are running around kind of not totally getting it, and then the adults that are kind of wearily remembering this. And I would say this is probably, again, one of those times where you guys do feel a little bit on the outside, as you don't really know any of these people that passed, but except, you know, maybe Estelle, but, you know, not her parents, right? But all of you find yourselves sitting together at a table, kind of just watching all of this unfold as you see, like, sad-looking parents and kids that clearly don't get it.
Did, Matthew cook this, Estelle? This is delicious.
He was a part of the team that did it, so I don't know if this was specifically him, but I'm gonna say it was because it is excellent.
As you look over, like, you can see, like, the crowd of people serving food, and you see, like, Matthew, who still has an arm in a sling, and, like, has, like, a cane that he's really not using, is, like, surrounded by people as he's, like, gesturing with his cane and with a ladle as he's like serving food to like a crowd of teenagers that all are like staring excitedly at him.
Fawning over him.
Yes, very much that.
He seems to be quite popular lately.
Yeah, I think it helps when you run into falling buildings. Apparently that's something the kids go for.
Had I known 10 years earlier.
What? I can't believe you've never been popular, Autumn.
I'm a little eccentric at times.
You just strike me as somebody who's always had a lot of friends.
I mean, yes and no. Like, if I had a lot of close friends, I probably wouldn't have come out here with basically nothing.
Oh, you don't have anybody back home that you're...
I mean,
know.
I have some friends, but, like, we're not as close. Like, I was close with my family, but I don't know.
See, that surprises me because you have been particularly outgoing since you got here. Is that just a way to make new friends?
Yes, they're also... It's hard when you grow up in a city, and a lot of the people you grow up with are, like, you've known them forever, and then when you, like, kind of change plans and are no longer doing the things that they think you should be doing, and your paths just kind of go different directions. You know, like, I don't know. I've made different choices than them, and they're happy doing what they're doing, and I wasn't, and I think I'm happier here. But
well, I can definitely understand that. Like, you know, you have people who you're friends with when you're younger, and then everybody decides to do their own thing as you move out and move on. Right,
and I never settled down long enough in, like, a different job to, like, really make new friends after the settle, you know? And, like, I'm friendly and stuff, and I like meeting people, but there's a difference between being friendly and having friends.
That's fair, I suppose. Estelle, who was in your kindergarten when you were here? Anybody we know?
Oh gosh. You've met Corey. He does a lot of the stuff in the gardens with
the aquatics, right?
Yes. A lot of the aquatic animals. There was Skylar, and I think he got married a long time ago, so I haven't seen him around because he's mostly with his wife. Let's see. I think Ash may have gone to another symbiote, but I haven't heard from her in a long time. I don't know. I don't see a lot of them. It doesn't help that we kind of just came back and immediately got into things that didn't involve hanging out with other people. But usually when I'm back, I'm just with my folks.
That's fair. Sheriff Mitchell, was he in your year, or?
He was a little bit older than me.
But he's been here since forever, I guess? He's been in the same eco-orb the whole time?
Oh, yeah. Our folks are family. We're family friends, so we've seen each other around a lot, and I think his parents might have been here as long as mine, honestly. Like, I'm pretty sure their family goes back generations out here.
Oh, wow.
As you guys are talking about Sheriff Mitchell, like, Estelle, you look over and you, like, kind of catch him in the crowd. You see him walk over to Matthew and kind of, like, clap him on the shoulder and talk to him a little bit.
Hopefully the good one.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Did he do the thing where he hits him on the shoulder, but it's the bad shoulder, so he winces?
Probably he would do something like that, like, and you can kind of see that it's, like, as soon as he walks over, it's, like, a bunch of, like, kind of young people giving him, like, the side eye. And then he sees the 4. I see 5 screens, and I want to say 5. He sees the 4 of you.
And Guffy.
We need to make another little screen that's just like a panting dog face, just to be Guffy.
It could be the tablet.
Yeah.
You just have it on your dog.
What type of dog is Guffy?
Not a corgi.
He is a Tibetan Mastiff. He is a big boy.
A big, fluffy dog. He walks over and sits next to all of you. I appreciate all of you coming out. I'm sure it's a little odd being here with being kind of new to town. I know we've had a lot of interesting discussions lately, but I am sorry that this is kind of how you've all arrived at Smoky Banks.
Any way that we can support everyone. I know that we're not totally part of the community, but I at least value my time here so far.
Well, it's funny all of you should say that. Here's the thing. Normally at this point, if I say normally, this specifically hasn't happened yet, this would usually be the time I would begrudgingly be seeking out the help of Mal, and she is not here. So here's what I'm kind of thinking.
Do you have something for us?
I don't want this to happen again. He looks around and goes, it's difficult to say that it's great to see the community come together. I don't love the circumstances, but seeing all these people together does really drive home how much I don't want this to happen all the time and how much I don't want this community to fail, which is possible. We only get so many of these before people go to other eco-herbs, and I rather want Smoky Banks to stick around. So, what I'm thinking is, find out what caused this, 'cause it wasn't a storm off the ocean, and it wasn't normal weather patterns. Something caused this storm, and I've got no one else to ask. So, find out for me and put a permanent stop to it.
I think we can figure out a way to do that.
I hope so, because I don't know what to do if this happens again, or how soon it might. But don't want to have another big communal funeral. I'd rather have us get together and just celebrate the Danaeus games or something fun, Like, this is not really what I hope for, so let's figure out how to have not this anymore.
You can count on us, Sheriff.
I hope so. I do very much hope so. I don't think there's any need for you guys to sprint out this very evening, but...
Oh, we have to plan, for sure.
Speaking of planning...
I appreciate that. Can I say something? I appreciate that. Do you know what it's like working with Maul all these years? I hated working with her, alright? She was good at what she did. She vanishes all the time. Do you have, a planner? Do you have, a calendar that you keep?
Of course. Did you want to see it? It's with me.
Don't say of course! No one ever does! Nobody else does! It's chaos here. When I'm trying to get... The professor, Doc Marlin, your boss, is in... Have you seen his office? It's chaos.
I have, yes.
He just has a drawer of money? He's not supposed to have drawers of money. He literally has a drawer full of money. I don't know what to do. I honestly don't even know what the procedure is to take that. He's not supposed to hoard money like that. Do I just take it? I don't know. It's weird. He's hoarding money. He just has a money drawer. Anyways, doesn't matter. Sorry. I don't deal with a lot of people who behave as professionals. So, you four seem great. At least one of you has a planner.
I can honestly say I do not have a planner. So...
You know what? That's what makes us work so well together.
I could get you one if you want.
I think I'm good. Thanks, though.
Autumn, you know what you could do with that, though, right? You could, start writing down all adventures and write your own little, adventure story.
Okay, now he has a point. Can I have a journal?
Well, sure. You can have...
Both.
A daily writing prompt if you want.
You can have both.
Well, I don't think I need... If Juliet's in my life, I don't think I need a planner.
Well, what about your own? I'm not sitting there in your own head with all your own thoughts. So surely there's things that you need to keep track of just to get out of your head and put pen to paper.
You know what? How about this? Tell me when your birthday is. Me and Juliet will pick you out a planner. And then we'll give it to... And then it'll be your planner. And you can write down when you're going to do things.
Yeah, it'll be one of those ones that won't have lines. It'll just be...
Are you the people who think giving socks for birthdays is a good gift?
Well, it depends. Are the socks nice? Do you need socks? It's all about the right gift at the right time.
He looks down at his feet. He's definitely wearing dad sandals and no socks. And he's like, it's always wet here. I've never worn socks in my life. It's constantly wet.
You just need wool socks. They stay warm even when they're wet.
Cargo shorts. Great. Really good, rugged pair of cargo shorts. What have you normally... It doesn't matter what you've normally gotten for your birthday. This is off subject.
How are you guys able to make sounding like going into the wilds boring?
I try to avoid it.
It's not. It's fascinating. You've been there, Autumn.
I have, but you're telling me I should, plan it out ahead of time.
Well, we absolutely should.
Well, yes, so you're prepared for any eventuality. Of which there could be a lot of different things, as we saw.
Speaking of planning, have you got... How are the bylaws coming? I'm ready for my blood oath.
I've been working on them. It's a little hard because I'm not familiar with sort of the community ethos exactly. So, trying to capture the vibe.
Well, and I have a feeling that Ruben's a little hard to talk to.
Does this mean we have to go to more meetings together then, Juliet, so you can get the ethos? Because I am ready.
I suppose.
Ruben is extremely happy to have all of you, because he is difficult to talk to, so I'm happy to have other people to talk to him, not just me. You guys are kind of my
Buffer?
Reuben buffer. Yeah, Reuben buffer. So that's great. But I am going to go make sure that no one gets too drunk at this. It happens sometimes. And make sure that no kids fly off of surfboards in the sky. I will leave you guys to it. Just a thought to keep in mind.
You just see Cal in the distance doing like leaping off a building.
All right, so yeah, the rest of the night winds down. You can see that, like, at some point in the night, like, especially younger people, it gets pretty crazy. There are definitely people racing boards around, and, you know, like, it gets a little hectic as, like, parents are shooing their kids off to bed. It's a little like, it's like the, you know, like, Irish wake vibes. Anyways, so all of you, you know, turn in, head to bed. And I will say the next thing we're going to do here is the interview with Autumn and Juliet. Does anyone want to do anything before that?
Autumn and Willow.
Autumn and Willow. That's what I meant. Someday names will work for me, but right now I'm bad at names. I never know a name.
Caitlin kept the same first letter for you.
Doesn't matter. I just, you know, like, I've seen this thing where it's like...
Do pictures help? Like, if we had pictures of all of us, would that be...
What would help is if my brain remembered a single name in my life ever, but it doesn't. So,
okay.
You know, I just have to own that at some point in my own... Who I am, I don't know names. Ever.
I'm proud of this growth because in the entirety of Outlaws Wanted, you, like, just, like, were, like, raving that it's all Caitlin and Mandy's fault for having similar names. So, it's nice to see...
Now, they can hurt me. They can hurt me by having similar names.
I was going to say, we don't necessarily need to make it harder for him.
But no, I'm saying I'm liking the character growth. I'm liking the DM meta arc character growth. You know, it's nice to see. You love to see it.
All right. So, we'll kind of skip forward a few days here. This is like the date that Willow scrawled on your hand to come by and do this interview. So the way broadcasting works in this town, it is entirely that Willow just has decided to start doing it, but it isn't like to radios. It's just over the town's PA.
Oh, man.
So, and it's just that Willow's in charge of it, so she gets to do whatever she wants, and no one's stopping her yet. So you walk into the, like, City Hall building, and it's sort of odd because this is, like, largely administrative offices, and then there's, like, a big open glassy room that is where the mediator council meets. And when you walk in, you see, like, a lady sitting behind the desk, and she's like, hi, do you need help with anything today?
I'm looking for Willow.
Why are you looking for Willow?
We're doing, like, an interview thing over the PA?
Like, over the PA? What? And then you just see, like, a door open and Willow, like, sticks her head out. And she just goes, well, hello there. Come on back. And then she, like, kind of, like, pats her and goes, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Everyone's gonna love it. And she, like, ushers you back into a room. And it's, like, you don't really take in the surroundings until the door closes behind you. And you realize it's a really weird room. Like, it's pretty small. This is clearly what used to be a closet. And there's, like, pillows and, like, random blankets just, like, stuck everywhere. And then there is just a mess of wires. Like, there's an entire wall of, like, these big, huge honking pieces of electronics with big plugs in them. You can see, like, a toolbox kind of over by the side. And then there's two, like, microphones hanging from the ceiling with, like, big old-timey, you know, like those, like, silver grill-looking microphones hanging down. You can see that there's usually one, and then, like, just looking at the ceiling, you can kind of tell there's, like, newly stapled wires up there, and another one hanging down, and then there's, like, a stool across the table. And she goes, it's not typical that really anyone ever comes and sees me, so this is a little bit new for me. But please take a seat. You're our first guest.
Well, I'm honored.
I think you deserve to be honored, but that's just my opinion. We'll see what everyone else thinks. Just so you know, the way this works, once we start, like, I hit this button, and she points at, like, a big switch, It's like, looks like a circuit breaker. She's like, that turns on the PA system, and then we just talk into the microphones. I tested yours out yesterday, and it seemed to work. So, we'll just start, talking, asking and sharing questions. Everything you say is just going out over the speakers, so don't say anything that you want to keep private, because everyone can hear it, and the good thing is, everyone basically has to listen if they have ears, because it's pretty loud, so just keep that in mind.
Can I say, as Zach, this is like the most horrifying thing I could ever think to put myself through.
Cool, that's funny because you do a podcast.
It's different because I'm not doing it live for everyone to have to listen to.
Yeah, right. Podcast, it's like, it's edited and no one's being forced to listen to it.
Also, have you ever like used a PA system where you can hear yourself at the same time? It's awful.
I have, yeah.
Truly horrifyingly terrible. Fun fact of things you have to learn to do in a library.
You all, so both of you sit down across from each other. You can tell she's, like, immediately very comfortable. She's, like, lounging back. She, like, moves the microphone to, like, kind of sit in front of her as she's leaning back. You can almost sort of also get the feeling she's not used to sharing this space with somebody, so she's sort of spreading out more than probably would be normal. As you're just kind of in, like, a little stool in basically, like, a big-ish closet just surrounded by, like, fluffy stuff stuck all over the walls.
I do love how you made such a fire hazard for this room.
Well, I guess also it's, like, newly refurbished, you know. Yeah, she, like, looks around and goes, you'd be amazed how much of this I have to do myself. It's not really designed to work like this, so I just kind of have to keep it running. She gestures at the mess of wires behind her. It's a living system. She goes, all right, are you ready to go?
I am if you are.
Cool, she flips a switch. Hello, Smoky Banks, and I wish all of you another wonderful morning as we have this delightful ocean breeze blowing in and the eco-herb starting to look like our normal home again. Today, we're doing something very special. Normally, I bless all of your ears with some beautiful sounds, but today, I'm joined by my beautiful guest, Autumn. Now, Autumn, probably pretty famous in our eco-herb by now, one of our newly arrived residents, saved 3 little kids like her first week here, and then came back and saved me from not having all of my PA equipment and radio. So we can thank her for saving kids and getting communications back up. But I'm here to learn about Autumn. So, Autumn, tell everyone about yourself. How'd you get here?
Well, I'm from the Oasis originally, and I decided that I wanted to come see the wilds and like all the cool stuff going on at Smoky Banks.
Isn't the Oasis like literally a desert?
Yeah, there is like the Oasis there, but it's kind of small and
So you decided to go for literally the opposite. You went from a desert oasis to a place where it rains every day and most nights.
Yep, and the ocean is new and different, and I've realized now that I should learn to swim sometime.
All right, so I want everyone in the eco-herb listening to not worry too much. After this, we're getting Autumn swimming lessons, all right? I'll be the first to volunteer to help. I've been swimming my whole life. But that's the thing number 1 to learn being here. Learning to swim. Really important on a river and on the ocean. It's a big deal. But, you know, we'll get there. Also, you get to see some beautiful, beautiful wildlife out in the ocean, but we'll, not for right now.
I did wrestle one of the manatees already.
Why did you wrestle a manatee?
I mean, have you not?
No. I've never wrestled a manatee, but I've never wrestled any animal. I've wrestled wires, and she points behind her to the wall of wires.
I mean, if we're being technical, I wasn't wrestling, I was trying to ride it.
Now, I will say, sorry, Sheriff Mitchell, in my wild youth, like 4 years ago, or 2 years ago, or if we're being honest, last year, I have ridden the solar boards, and if you haven't, don't. They're terrible. Do it. They're really fun. They're super fun.
They are so fun. They are amazing. I mean, totally bad.
Wear a helmet. It doesn't help, but wear a helmet.
Maybe some knee pads.
She continues asking you questions, and basically, I will say we don't have to do this 100% in character, because it's basically recap the entire last arc. what information do you choose to give about being in the wilds? Like, give me a summary.
No, we have to do it like in real time. So 20 episodes later, we come back to town. We come back to town, and then Autumn tells a story about how she's in doing an interview in the radio station, and she's telling the story.
If I was smart, the whole first arc would have been in media res, right? It's like just all flashbacks. So you see the whole previous arc in flashbacks from this moment. But what does Autumn choose to say at this point?
That's the beauty of podcasting, Cody. Mandy can just now make this episode 1.
Too confusing. Too meta for me.
So I think Autumn focuses a lot on the beauty of the wilds, as well as like making herself seem adventurous.
Okay.
Or not see like she is adventurous, but like she makes it kind of like there's the beauty of the wilds. It's very like gorgeous and scenic and beautiful. And then there's also like the Pulp Fiction angle of Autumn traveling through the wilds.
But you're pretty clear that there were Blighthounds, they captured the kids, and then you found the kids captured by Blighthounds.
Yes, Autumn for sure skips the moon people being massacred.
Okay.
Like, she doesn't like go into like, because that's like trauma for her that she's not bringing up right now.
Yep.
And I think that's the only thing she'd like really leave out. Like,
do you mention the hermit that you found in a cave?
I don't see why she wouldn't.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine.
Like no, I was trying to think like the only thing like I think she would like play up her like adventuring, and the only thing she wouldn't really want to talk about is like finding people murdered.
Gotcha.
She'd probably talk a little bit longer about the moon people because she knows Willow's interested in the moon people.
Gotcha. Okay. So we'll say you do most of that description, and it's like you basically tell this story back and forth for like an hour with her, which we're not going to roleplay out every moment of. And as the interview kind of winds down, she goes, so what you mean to tell me is that, 1, you were attacked, well, technically inside of Smoky Banks by a dog that rots the ground, and also you found not one, but potentially 2 settlements of people, one of which you think are from a moon, out in the wilds.
I wouldn't call Hugo really a settlement, more of a guy, but yeah, there are people who seem to be doing stuff long-term out there.
I mean, that is odd. You understand, right? That's quite weird from what we all assume is the wilds are meant to be nothing.
Yeah, it is weird, and it's dangerous out there, and there's a lot of cool things you can see, but it's also, like, alarming that how these people made it out there so long, but, like, the moon town was deserted, so, and it looked like the Blighthounds had, like, scared them away or something, so I would caution people to just, like, want to go out into the wilds pretending to be moon people.
Oh, I don't think that everyone's first impulse after hearing this story is going to be to run out into danger. Not everyone is as risk-taking as you. Makes good stories, though, I will admit. But, to wind this down, I do have 2 final questions for you, Autumn, that I think it's important for everyone in Smoky Banks to know. So, first question. What do you think people have wrong about the wilds? Like, in your mind, after being out there, what surprised you the most? What shocked you the most? What was the thing that went, this is not what I was expecting?
I think, this is going to sound like really corny, and I know, but I think the wildness of it, like, every depiction we have of the wilds is always this, like, curated, tame thing like a zoo, and everything's just messier and merged and blended in ways that I wasn't expecting. Like, it's not like, and here's the Lighthound exhibit, and here's the, weird giant frog exhibit. These things live in community, and, like, they're a whole ecological system that is meshed together, and it's just untamed and crazy and different and beautiful than anything I've seen curated that we talk about the wilds.
I guess that's difficult for a still image to really get across, right? Is this idea of motion, right? Moving parts, all of these things happening in a mess at once. I could understand that being difficult. All right, and you ready for my last question, right? The heavy hitter.
I'm ready.
What do you think people need to take away from all of this information that you just gave them? I mean, it's pretty rare, really, that we talk to someone who goes out into the wilds as much as you have. I mean, if we're being honest, that we know of people that regular the wilds, one of them is missing and was replaced by someone that went into the wilds with you, and the other one, kind of a criminal, for being honest with ourselves. Maul's a character, but, not exactly a regular member of society, so what do we need to know? What do we need to take away from this? What do we do with all this information that you just gave us?
I think the most important thing about all of this, and honestly the only reason that I went out there and that I made it back, is that community is important. I had a group of friends, and being out there just reminded me of how important all of this is. I mean, this is probably sounding really lame. But it's just the community that we have with each other is important and special. And if we didn't have community, we wouldn't have gone out there to save those kids. And just because things are difficult or we don't always get along with community doesn't mean it's not worth trying to save that community.
I think that's a good place for us to leave this. I want to thank everyone who's forced to listen to me talk whenever I feel like it. I'm the only one that knows how to run the PA equipment, so I get to decide what's important on the open air. That's how it works. She turns off the I say recording because I'm used to podcasting. She turns off the very live broadcast, right? Flips a switch, and you can feel the temperature in the room actively start to come down as the wall of electronics de-energizes, and Willow leans back and just kind of looks at you and goes, so it's really crazy out there, right? It's really nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy and wild and beautiful, and I kind of love it.
I can see that. I can see that. I want to try to think about the right way to put this, because I'm concerned about how it will sound. You're planning on going back out there again, kind of a lot. You're not going to stop this at all, right?
We're not live, right?
She's like, no, you'd hear the ominous humming coming from behind you.
I mean, Autumn does not know how electronics work. think of average person. Can the average person rewire?
Oh yeah, this seems like magic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically magic to Autumn. She knows it's technology, but at a certain point, it is magic. So I have been asked by the secret society in town to be their agent in the wilds to replace Mal.
Why wasn't that on? I should have lied. All right, fine. It's okay. I can move past that. You told me to turn it off. It was off. I'm not lying. I just wish I was. All right, go ahead. Continue.
I mean, okay, the reason is, I don't know how much trouble I'll get in for telling you.
That's fair. That's a fair point. Okay, so here's my point.
And if I told the whole town, I'm pretty sure I'd get in a lot of trouble.
You're probably already in a lot of trouble, but that's fine.
That is completely fair. You're worth it.
I've been in trouble with Sheriff Mitchell before. It's all right. Here is the more important one for me. I am conflicted because on the one hand, I want you to go back out into the wild because it means I get to do this interview again, which is great. On the other hand, it sounds terrifying, and I am a little bit worried about you being out there. Just a little bit worried about you being out there. Just do you know how dangerous it is out there? Because it seems terrifying to me.
So you see Autumn kind of do that looking back for a second. It's flashing back to seeing the Blighthound murder. I understand that it's very dangerous, but I don't think it's right to leave kids and stuff out there. And if we can have a group of us that's search and rescue, I think it's worth it. That
makes a kind of sense. But I will say, now I am going to be insistent on this. And she gets in her bag and rummages around and pulls out a big, felt tip pen and pops the cap off, and she grabs your hand and holds it and writes a time, probably sometime in the evening, meet on the beach this date. She's like, you are getting swim lessons from me at this time. Don't be late. no going into the wilderness with not knowing how to swim. That I don't, even if you're from the desert, we're learning how to swim. It'll be fine.
I look forward to it.
And as she stands up and opens the door and ushers you out, she goes, "Great, it's a date," and then slams the door.
I was really hoping that either Willow would say that or Autumn would accidentally say that.
I wanted to, but it didn't fit into the conversation well enough to just make it,
What I'm saying is I'm very glad Willow said that.
So Autumn blushes and turns an even deeper red, and then, hurriedly walks out.
You turn around, walk out, and walk straight into Sheriff Mitchell, who is, flushed and panting and goes, "I was on the other side of town, and I ran here. The other side of town, Autumn. The other side."
Sounds like a good workout.
Sheriff, I mean this in the best of ways. Would you like to start going on runs with me and Juliet in the morning? You seem a little out of shape. The town is not that big to take an entire hour to run across.
I mostly lift, Autumn, I mostly lift. I gotta level with you. One, I walk a lot, and I mostly lift. I'm not a distance runner.
I mean, you can't skip leg day. Leg day is very important. You need to have a balanced workout. You can't just lift. Yeah, you'll end up with really big muscles and then little toothpick legs, and you'll look silly.
He just blinks slowly. What about I'm in a secret society? And he looks around. He looks at the woman who's sitting behind the desk and just goes, "Hang on." And he just grabs you and drags you out the door. So you're not. We are in a secret society that is not supposed to tell the whole town that there are monsters because I don't want the whole town to leave.
I didn't tell them about the secret society. That's a win, right?
If your secret society, let's imagine you read a lot of books, right? You read a lot of books, fun, fantasy, fiction.
Yes.
Books.
I
right?
do that.
Look, I get it. I love my favorite genre, hands down, supernatural detective, right? For obvious reasons, I think you can work out why that's my favorite genre.
For real?
All right? I've got stacks of them. It's my little, it's my guilty pleasure, right? So typically...
Real quick, I know you're making a very important point right now, but I've been to the library here and it's kind of lacking. Can I borrow some?
Of course you can borrow some! Of course! I have so many and no one to talk to about them. Of course you can borrow some. That's not the point. We'll do a book exchange. Autumn, that's not the point. Don't do that. That's not fair because it's an interest from me now and then you used it. You used it against me, is what you did. You diffused it by using it. I don't appreciate... I don't need your help working out. Of course I will lend you books. When you have a secret detective, the issue is not that he's a secret detective. The issue is what the secret is, not that he is detecting it. People just think we're crazy.
So I gotta say, at first I hated Sheriff Mitchell. I love him now.
I'm just sitting here thinking, does he werewolf ones or detectives a demon?
They're very much the hardcore noir ones. They're
he said fantasy, didn't he?
No, he said supernatural detective.
Oh.
It's gonna be what Cody would read, except less spicy.
You don't know that about Sheriff Mitchell.
I'm about to find out that about Sheriff Mitchell.
I now have a headcanon that what one of the stories that Sheriff Mitchell has is our City of Mist campaign. That's just one of his books.
Oh my gosh!
Cody, that has to be Naptown has to be a series of books.
Oh my gosh!
I will never confirm or deny whether the first book he gives you is called Naptown Chronicles.
Except because it's supernatural detective. It's all from Tanner's perspective.
Of course, it would be.
Oh my gosh!
Tanner's the main character, obviously, so of course it would be all from his perspective. It's this amazing story. It's this detective turned rum runner that falls in love with a jazz singer that reminds me of Estelle for some reason. Don't tell her I said that.
I think you're projecting a little bit.
Nonsense. I'm just like him, except I have both arms and I'm in better shape.
Except for your legs, apparently. So, I understand what you're saying, but I'm trying to get them to not know about the wilds isn't going to make them fear it less. It's going to make them fear it more when anything could be out there. I am offering them a glimpse into what's out there and keeping them in town.
He just, like, rubs his eyes as I am doing literally right now and just kind of, like, stares up into the sky and goes, well, I guess cool, and just kind of, like, wanders off, like, mumbling to himself, because now this is what he has to deal with. Like, you kind of made the decision for him.
So as he's walking off, like, Autumn watches him go away, and then she just goes, I got a date!
Thanks for listening to this episode of Wanderlust. Music for this show is credited down below. If you like this campaign, you can find more of our shows at the Wandering Gamer website or on Podbean. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Links in the description. Now bear in mind, in the wilds, some wander to get lost, and some wander to find themselves.